Welcome to Denver Public Library. You're at the Denver Central Library in downtown Denver, and you're on the 7th floor in our exhibition for the 1908 when the Democrats first came to Denver. Denver Public Library is known for collecting the artifacts and the stories of Colorado in the West. And what we had here in partnership with the Colorado Historical Society is photographs and some ephemera, some artifacts and things of the day. So we wanted to have something that was relevant, that would help to tell the story and help to chronicle what was happening in 1908 and compare it to 2008.
The Denver Municipal Auditorium was built exclusively for the convention. It opened literally 2 days before the National Convention. The convention opened on July 7th and the auditorium opened to the public on July 5th, so it was built in the nick of time. Democratic Convention of 1908, of course, attracted political groups from all over the country, including the Tammany Democrats from New York, an enormous political machine that was a very influential group at the 1908 convention. The Tammanies were known as the Braves informally, Indian, sort of named after Indian groups. Denver wanted to put on a show, and while they assured the delegates that there weren't actually real Indians that they had to worry about in Denver, they brought in 40 Apache Indians from New Mexico to escort the Tammany Braves to their hotel and to camp in City Park and dance for the delegates as well. So at the same time we were assuring people it was safe to come here, we also wanted to show them some of the Wild West that Denver had a reputation for hosting. Denver wanted to show the rest of the country a good time. One of the ways we did this in 1908 was to have the Moffett Railroad bring snow down from Rawlins Pass. Huge trainloads of snow were brought down to Denver, and then the Denver Public Works Department loaded the snow onto wagons, took these huge drifts of snow and dumped them out in front of the convention hall for the purpose of allowing the delegates something to have a snowball fight with in July. And apparently the delegates got pretty carried away with this. The story goes that a lot of them brought snow into the convention hall and were pelting the delegates with snowballs inside the hall. One story even says that the police had to come down and arrest 50 of the delegates, sort of give them a stern lecture, and then send them back on their way. One of the hot objects that this display has sort of brought to light is the existence of this key. A key with a tag on it that says "Key to Box" in the cornerstone of the Denver City Auditorium, to be open in 105 years. The cornerstone was laid in 1907, so that would be approximately 2012. And there's some question today about whether or not that time capsule that is in there really exists or not today, or if it was taken out during one of the renovations. We do know what was placed in the box. It was some papers regarding the Masons and an address from the mayor and a coin from 1907 that was minted here in Denver. But whether or not that box actually exists, if there's anything for that key to open, is kind of an open question at the moment. Another really interesting aspect and a difference today between now and 1908 was the role of women in the 1908 convention. There are only a handful of states, all in the West, that allowed women the right to vote. Colorado was one of them. And so of the 1,008 credentialed delegates who attended the 1908 convention, only 5 of them were women. And they were all from Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. These women brought with them a plank for the Democrats to consider for equal suffrage for women on a national scale. This was in 1908, and the Democrats turned them down. It wasn't until 1920 that the 19th Amendment was passed, allowing women the right to vote in national elections. One of my very favorite parts of this exhibit is this corner right here, where we look at William Jennings Bryan, the candidate for the Democrats in 1908, and a lot of the political cartoons that talk both about his candidacy, the idea that Bryan himself did not attend the convention in 1908 personally. He stayed on his farm. He made a big deal about mowing hay and alfalfa, but you can see that he and in fact the entire nation are still focused on what's going on in Denver, and he's waiting to hear about his nomination. The idea was, and the custom for presidential candidates was to stay away from their convention. They didn't want to be perceived as being too eager to receive their party's nomination. And so he was, like Cincinnatus, stayed at home and farmed. But he had a telephone line and a telegraph line installed, and when he received his nomination, he literally phoned in his acceptance speech to the delegates in Denver. He put it up on speakers so that everybody could hear.
And how much did that cost?
$3.25 a minute, at a time when a day's wage was about $5. So it was extraordinarily expensive. You could buy a loaf of bread for a nickel and a pound of beef for 15 cents. So it was a very expensive long distance car. How did Bryan do in the long run? Well, he had run for president twice before. and he did no better this time. He lost the election to William Howard Taft, who was Teddy Roosevelt's hand-picked successor. Bryan won all of the South, and he won a handful of states in the West. He really needed to do better in the North and the East, and he won absolutely no support there. He, as prominent a politician and national leader as he was, he really couldn't escape the long shadow cast by Teddy Roosevelt.